Council Committee on Finance will come to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilors Kadim?
Here.
Dion?
Here.
Hart?
Here.
Kilby?
Here.
Pereira?
Here.
Ponte? Reposo?
Here.
Sampson? Here. President Kamara?
Here. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit this meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present, and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Before we begin, I want to have Council Pereira get up and
Helen, could you come down here? My Helen, she doesn't know why I asked her to come tonight. Helen is this on?
Oh, thank you.
Helen is celebrating her 90th birthday. But Helen works at the Nashua Street Food Pantry every day. I think she's the first one there in the morning, maybe 6. She's the president of the Niagara Neighborhood Association. She's on the park board in Fall River. She's on the traffic board. She's very involved with Dave and Sandy Dennis in Creative Art Network. She goes to Joe Primo and Liz Primo's Saturday Kitchen whenever she can to help out. And she also helps out at the Vet's Kitchen. And I thought it was fitting. We all know who Helen is. Where you get your energy, I don't know, but I wish I had your gene pool, because I don't know at 90 that I would be doing everything that you're doing. So we got you some flowers as a way of saying thank you. You want to say something?
Say thank you.
Helen, the only thing that Linda forgot to mention is that you don't miss a city council meeting live and in person. You've come to more meetings than I think any other citizens I've ever seen here, maybe with the exception of Danny Robillard, but you got age on him, so you've been to more meetings than he has. And I want to thank you for that. It is true. I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. You come to a lot of city council meetings in person, pay attention, always get involved. Thank you, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you for all you do for the city.
Don't be surprised.
Mr. Perry said I can't retire till I'm 99.
All right, there you go.
Thanks, Warren Court.
And her husband was a firefighter for Fall River for many years. And back then, you couldn't live outside of Fall River if you were a firefighter. So I'm really glad they had that. If not, she might have moved to Tiverton and we wouldn't have her. So I'm glad it kept you in Fall River.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good for her.
Item number 1, citizens input time, although however, no one has signed up for citizens input time. So we'll move on to item number 2, continue discussion of the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget as follows. We will have financial services. The Director of Financial Services, come down, please. First on the list. Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Reposo.
Good evening. Just 2 quick questions. I know I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit, but since you're the head of the department, I'll ask you. I met your new finance analysis and compliance manager yesterday. The question I had was, 1, how's that working out? But 2, the line item in the budget, is that the accurate number for that position?
So I'm gonna first I'm gonna say that it's working out great. We've already have Emily digging into some areas that we really want to take a better look at. And that item is that's not her starting salary, but that is the budget where her salary will change with CPI in her contract in January.
Okay.
Actually, can I jump in on that?
Of course.
Just as a general guideline for the entire budget, there are a number of by contract division heads, directors, upper level folks who have raises or increases identified in the budget Most of those are estimates, essentially larger than likely estimates in order to make sure that we have the room either for a CPI, which may be in somebody's contract. So there's a number of employees that have CPI in their contract, set by the federal government. And whatever that CPI is how that goes up. So 2 years ago, it was a ungodly 7.5%, which was remarkable. Last year, it was a little over 3.5%. This year, it looks to be closer to 2.5% to 3%. So not knowing what that's going to be and knowing that it comes out in January, those raises are just guesstimates. And then there are others where their year-to-year increase, if any, is negotiated between that person and the mayor. So again, it's more of a placeholder. So I know that there's definitely been some mention of some increases and other things that were surprising. I would tell you that the vast majority of those, and I can go one by one, but I don't want to belabor the point. I just want to do a sort of a blanket statement about many of them. The vast majority of those are placeholders, knowing that we couldn't be certain as to what those would be for any number of reasons.
Okay.
So,
So let me ask a follow-up question to that, because I noticed in looking and comparing FY '24 to FY '25, I noticed that there was some slight adjustments from the FY '24 total to the FY '25 annual salary in the first column. Would that explain some of those differences there, or?
in certain situations, yes.
Okay.
There are some that are anticipating increases that would be tied to the only contract that's outstanding right now, the ASPE contract. Traditionally, some are, some are just not part of ASPE, but are tied to the ASPE increase. There's also the law contract, which is our 3 custodians. That contract is also being negotiated. I don't know that there's any heads that are tied to that. But yeah, that would absolutely explain that. And
Is that ever captured in the year-to-year budgets, those changes that may happen toward the tail end?
I think the actuals at the end would definitely capture what the actual would be. Because some of those increases, might actually happen on the first of the year, not necessarily on the fiscal year.
Where the timeline hits. Okay, that kind of makes sense some of the other things I had, but I'll stop there as far as that concerned. And just give us a little more details on Emily, is her name, I'm sorry? Is that her name? Emily? What is her role looking like right now? What is things she's kind of working on? I'm just curious, because I don't really know much about the position itself, so. you
So
dive into it a
right
little bit?
now, as we all know, that we've all been talking about it for at least the 2 years I've been here, is trash and our expenses associated around trash and recycling and that. So we're actually taking a very deep dive into analysis there, so we can look at trends, we can see where there's issues, what neighborhoods, look at our tonnage and what's going on with that and recycling. So that's a big project right now that we really need to dig into so we can make good decisions.
So those are the immediate priorities?
That was the immediate priority, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll yield for now, thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council seat 8, Council Sampson.
So I have a couple of questions here. I think I gotta jump around too, the way things are placed. So, I guess I'll start off with, I was not in favor of that, let me see what you call her, financial analyst and compliance manager. I was very vocal about that. I thought this department has a ton of consultant with Ed Capone, and it just wasn't fair for the taxpayers to now put another help. Now, I know that she is a compliance person, but her job description that was put before us was definitely almost like an assistant to you. But with that being said, I went and met her, and she is phenomenal. She is worth every bit of that salary on the high end. She's passionate. She's Fall River. She understands Fall River. She's brilliant. She's smart. She's exactly what this department has needed and what is needed. And so I'm hoping that she stays and grows and stays in the city. Which is why I went to meet her, because I didn't want her to think that we're all bad people, because I was very opposed to it. But you are well received. But with that being said, because she is in at a higher salary, I'm still not going to give up on the fact that, now I've only been here now 2 years, 2.5 years, whatever. Ed Capone is still here, but I'm having trouble, unless he's done and I don't see it, I'm having trouble finding what we're paying him.
So Ed Capone has been down to like 4 hours a week, and Ed wants to go home. So now that Emily's on board and we're acclimating Emily into, how we do things differently than where she's from, and everything. Ed's not gonna be around. He does not wanna be here.
Okay, well, look, you say that every time you come down here. I have a hard time with that because if someone does not want to be here, they're not going to want to be here. He's here because he's being asked to be here, he's working, he's not doing this for free. This has nothing to do with Ed, but we have needed a service, and so, this is, I think, the third budget I've been on, and every single time, Ed's not gonna be here any longer. Ed, come on, he's not gonna be here. And now it was 4, 10, 12, and really, I'm sick of it, because I don't really believe it until I see it. And here we are with another budget. We brought on another salary, and in fact, even though it's not budgeted for a cost, the assistant assessor, is still in here. Assistant auditor position is still in there, although it has nothing on it.
Yes.
I think we did argue to take it out of the budget, but we didn't. We didn't take it out of ordinance. But, so we have all of these things, and yet he's down to 4 hours. I think I've heard 4 hours, I think I've heard 10 hours. I just don't think it's fair. I think you have exactly what you've asked for. You have asked for a dynamic department, you have a dynamic department now, and I'd like to see the taxpayers not have to front the money anymore for that department to have a consultant still. It's enough. With that, I yield for now. Thank you.
Councilor C2, Councilor Dion.
Yeah, I'd like to echo my colleague's sentiments in C8. I agree 100%, and we did. We said remove two positions from the budget, but we didn't get that. So clearly, I remember we were told that the assistant auditor salary would go towards the salary of the individual being hired. And the purchasing agent's salary would go towards that as well. If you look, the assistant auditor's salary has been removed. The purchasing agent's salary has not been removed, hasn't been reduced, and in fact, increased by $13,000.
So can I address it? Are you ready for me?
Yeah, I'd like you to address that.
So as we were working through the way we're handling our purchasing department, and we've actually been in contact with the Inspector General's office, and we do need to make some modifications to that. So we are actually working on a plan between myself and the administration, Seth, Al Oliveira, and our assistant treasurer, who's been stepping in. So we do need to do something a little bit more than we were going to try to do, because we wouldn't be in compliance with state law and the Inspector General.
But we didn't know that when we were discussing the new position and saying that we were going to.
We did not know that at the time that we needed to have a dedicated.
So how did we go about finding that out?
the-
And why did we find that out?
So as we've been doing some cleanup in purchasing and with combis, which is where you have to put all of your bids and purchasing through, we found that there was a lot of things that were still in there from years ago that we had to clean up. And so the Al Oliveira and Rebecca, our assistant treasurer, have met with the Inspector General's office a few times to try to make sure that we're in compliance and doing everything we're supposed to be doing. So in conversations with them is where we know that we need to. Now, we're not going to hire a full assistant purchasing agent, isn't the plan. We're actually talking about hiring like an assistant purchasing agent. But right now, that office is too busy and there's too much at stake to just have piecing it together with part-time people and just one clerk. So we do need to do something. We will be bringing something else forward, but we don't have that whole plan laid out.
So what I find interesting about this conversation is when this first came up in ordinance, these are the discussions that we had. You had counselors, myself one of them, who said a municipality of this size should not be operating without a purchasing agent because of the RFPs, because
Advertised.
for all the reasons you just stated. We had those discussions. But no, we were assured this position was going to be funded by taking, so, okay, I'm very, very frustrated, because not only did we not get what we asked for so you could get what you wanted, it's completely changed. You're talking about an assistant purchasing agent, but the position's salary was increased by $13,000. So Have you considered what you're offering to an assistant purchasing agent? Is Mr. Olivera gonna still be involved in the purchasing portion? Is Rebecca still gonna be involved in it? Are we gonna be paying 3 people instead of 1 person like we used to? Because part of our issue was we didn't wanna create a new position and still have all this other funding for other positions in the budget. But that obviously got completely blown out of the water.
I'll jump in. So I wouldn't agree that it got completely blown out of the water. So there's a lot going on here, and I think to some extent, this conversation is made a little bit muddier by the fact that most folks, ordinary folks, don't really understand exactly how the purchasing process is supposed to work. And I would say that when I took the position, I didn't understand how the purchasing process was supposed to work. So we actually have a number of people trained. I think we have 4 or 5 folks either already trained or in the process of being trained. From fully trained and experienced, like Mr. Olivera. Rebecca in the finance department has much more experience than she even had a year ago. Attorney Hum has gone through the training. The staff in the purchasing department, the clerk, she's gone through the training. We have other folks scheduled to go through the training. And the reason why that's important is that purchasing has to begin in each department. None of the departments were following purchasing the way they were supposed to because they didn't know. So the first step in what I said, all right, I'll take responsibility for it because I'm the one who said it, is that we acknowledged that purchasing wasn't happening the way it was supposed to. And we thought that by getting people trained to do the purchasing, that would solve the issue that we had, which is that it just wasn't happening at all correctly. And in fact, we've solved some of that. The problem is that for the bigger things, the RFQs and RFPs, that is a hole that I did not anticipate. I thought we'd be able to do it all at the department level. So what CFO Almond is proposing is something that is really a pretty fluid conversation still. There is talk about an assistant purchasing agent. There's talk about whether or not Attorney Hum can assume that role once, as ARPA is tapering down. So there's a lot of different options. And to be honest, I think the reason why that was left in is because it's actually not a very clear path forward at this point. We have people in place at the department level that are creating accountability. That hadn't been done. It's now being done. The reality that we actually have to have an official purchasing agent is not something I realized when we put the department level plan in place. So it hasn't been blown out of the water. It's just evolved a little bit because there were pieces that I didn't realize. Because I myself am not purchasing certified. I probably know more about it than I ever did, but I wasn't purchasing certified when I came up with this idea that we needed to deal with it at the department level, and I didn't realize there needed to be a central purchasing agent. So, at this point, there are conversations, but I would not say that there is a definitive plan. And to be honest with you, and I think reasonable people can disagree, I probably would not have, in this moment, articulated it with such certainty, because I actually think there's a lot of different possibilities for how we move forward with purchasing. And I think reasonable people can disagree as to the best way forward.
Question to the president. Are we ultimately going to go line by line, or can we at any point in time make a motion for a reduction in a line item and refer it to full council?
You can do whatever you want, Council, it's whatever the will of the council. You can make a motion if it gets a second and the council votes on it. It all depends. I would like to go line by line, do whatever you, but you can.
So, okay,
The council will
if-
dictate what it wants to do. I'm not gonna push it one way or another.
No, well, if we're gonna go line by line eventually, then I'm fine with that. If we're gonna take a vote like last year, just all of a sudden, everybody's ready to vote, let's vote, and we don't have that due process, I don't wanna miss that.
Yeah, I can't control that though, Council.
Point of
That'd be up to-
information.
Well, sure.
Yes. May I, Mr. President?
Yep.
Madam Clerk, if I may, prior years when we went line item by line item, we utilized the appropriation order that we have. So if the council, for example, wants to reduce general government by $1 million, you would reduce when general government comes to $1 million. You also then need to reduce it at the top as well. So to our colleague in seat 2's point, it would be through the appropriation order, but just wanted to
Yes.
make that clear.
But she could do that at any time she wanted. I mean, she could make the motion to reduce any line item at any time she wanted. during the hearing.
Yeah, point of clarification, that was my point. I'm not too sure of the answer, so probably it should be consulted with, I'm sorry, Council Pond.
I believe we got slapped on the wrist on this before because the council needs to refer it to full council for action and not done on the Committee on Finance, which is where we're
Oh,
at right
obviously,
now.
right, I'm doing it during the council meeting.
Okay, yeah,
Right,
that's sure.
yeah, correct. You can't make, yeah, exactly, but I'm talking, during the council meeting, that you can't vote on the budget in finance.
Right, all
So
right.
she's talking about, well, I can't,
I think her question
that?
was, Mr.
You
President,
would make as
was,
a
can you
committee a
do it?
recommendation to them.
Correct, okay, yep,
Recommendation to go to full
yep,
council.
thank you.
my point is, I'm not driving it one way or another. It's up
course
to the
not,
will of the
yeah.
council. Whatever you
Totally.
council decides and gets seconded and voted on, and I would like to go and do line item by line item, it's fine with me. That's why we scheduled 6 meetings, and we actually scheduled another one for a final one on the 12th, right? Just in case we need to go that far. So, we're here for the long haul, I'm fine.
Yeah, the question was, make a motion and refer it to full council so we do it properly, or do we just wait and will we vote to do it line by line? That was all, it was just a basic question.
Okay? We get a basic
Okay.
answer, we're good.
I'm gonna hold off right now anyways, because I am really struggling with this one.
You yield, Counselor?
Yeah, for now I'll yield.
Counselor C4, Counselor Kilby, you had your hand up. You're good?
I'm content right now. Thank you.
All right, I just have a question, if you don't mind. Mr. Akins, and I know you had said earlier that the purchase department, there was, people were doing what they wanted. Do we cut a purchase order number for every item that we purchase?
No, I mean, some, well, we do, but some are through combis. I mean, they all go in different, there's many different ways in which you can purchase.
Yeah? But I think
in
if you
compliance
had,
with
if you had a
purchasing.
central location where you're purchasing something, and whatever department or individual wanted to purchase anything, they should be able to get a purchase order number that's relative to what they want to get, and then the control is the purchase order number, so everyone will know, someone in the purchase department will know exactly where that purchase order number is and what's applied to. Do we do that?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I've been told in the past that people just are purchasing stuff without purchase orders, and they're just saying, I'll give you a purchase order later, so there's no number assigned to that purchase. Has that happened?
It certainly has happened.
So then they're not getting assigned the purchase order number. That should be stopped right then and there. No one should be able to purchase a pencil without having a purchase order number before that purchase is made.
So there is no purchasing that's off the record or that there is no record of. That is not happening.
Okay.
At one time, I think there certainly were purchases that were being made without going through the appropriate channels. And obviously, we're talking about, over certain thresholds, where you either need to get 3 quotes or you actually need to go out to bid. I mean, there's the escalating thresholds. That is not happening. But what definitely was happening, and this is probably more in that realm of the 3 quotes, there were things that were just being purchased because it was easy. Amazon, for instance, is not on combis. It's not in the mass buys permissible list. So there had to be other ways that we did that. And that's a conversation we've not only had internally, but also with schools, because they need to be, compliant as well. I know they're working on that. So there's been a lot of little things that have required reminders and additional training. We're doing training in-house with all of the clerks and department heads to make sure that they understand how to comply. So there's been a lot of steps that have been taken to basically fix what, had been happening years past.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Council seat 6, Council Party? Do you,
You might,
Council C4, Council Kilby?
thank you.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
so I think Council Dion does make a good point. I mean, in the past, we have voted on the overall allocation appropriation for each body, school department, and on the number. But it might be a good practice this time and going forward. And I don't know, I'm thinking about this, pondering it, to go line by line. And a motion could be made by whoever, and if it's seconded, there'll be some discussion on that specific line item. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Is
well, Council, we've done it both ways.
okay.
So, yeah, we have done line by line, and we've done
Yeah, it
overall
doesn't take
budgets.
long, it takes a half hour or so.
That's why I said, that's why we got
But
6 meetings
whatever-
scheduled.
Whatever anybody wants to do, for me, if it's more efficient, either way, but as long as we're following a practice,
I'm fine with it, Council.
so, okay, thank you.
You
I
will
yield.
decide.
So I just, I don't know if everybody realizes that all of the school purchasing goes through the purchasing department here at City Hall. So we're responsible for all of the purchasing, all of the purchase orders. And again, once you're doing anything with federal grants, you have to follow federal procurement rules, which is a lot more cumbersome than just, and you have to also check the vendors to make sure that they're not in any kind of violation. So there is a lot more involved in purchasing than I think, everybody understands, and unfortunately, it's very cumbersome. Sometimes you just can't just go with the best price the way you have to if it's over a certain threshold.
Can I respond to that, since I started it?
Well, you yield the floor, Counselor, so now, there's other counselors that want to speak first. You can come back. I get you down, you can come back and see, but,
That's fine.
all right, we're going to move on to Council number seat 6, Counselor Ponting.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll get back to this purchasing position in a moment, but I want to kind of, if it's appropriate now, because it is through the collector's office, motor vehicle revenue and excise tax, if I may hit on this for a moment, if it's appropriate. Are you guys prepared to talk about it? Okay. So within the collector's office, through local receipts, you're anticipating your motor vehicle excise tax this fiscal year to jump up. This is page 42 under your revenues, even though it does fall under this department, at $8.5 million, an increase of $150,000 for motor vehicle excise tax. Now, my prior experiences here on the council, I've been quite conservative, while the administrations have been a little over-conservative or not so conservative when it came to the projections of motor vehicle excise tax. So, looking at your quarterly report that we just had in quarter 3, there was a transfer within motor vehicle excise tax last year of $250,000. Was that in or out of that department? There was a transfer / adjustment. Your original appropriation was
the budget.
8.6, yep.
Oh, so that was, so that when the final cherry sheet and when we've made our final adjustment, I think we reduced the motor vehicle excise, but I'd have to.
It wasn't showing, it looks like you reduced it from 8.6 to 8.3.
Yes.
So that means, which is what your budget's showing, but what makes you feel that we are going to get more excise tax by $150,000 this fiscal year?
So actually, our treasurer collector and I did look at motor vehicle excise pretty extensively, and we've actually we've already exceeded our expectations for this year for our budget, so we feel very comfortable with this number.
Can I have Ian come down and speak about this as well? I'd like to ask him.
Absolutely.
Please.
Come down, please.
Mr. President, just through you, point of information, can I just ask the clerk do you have all the Massachusetts general laws that we've adopted, or is it easily accessible?
Yeah.
Can you just check if we adopted Chapter 41, Section 103? Thank you.
How are you, sir?
Pretty good.
Nice to see you. And I appreciate Ms. Elman's comments on this. Can you elaborate a little bit what went into your analysis when it came to motor vehicle excise tax projections for revenue?
So in the last, we sent out our biggest commitment in February.
Yes.
We don't know ahead of time how much that's going to be. It comes right out of the RMV. They send us the file and we send out the tax bills. This year we had, I don't know the exact number, but it was close to 2,000 extra bills than we'd ever had. Just on that first commitment. Each subsequent commitment has also been higher. So we
In terms of dollars or
in terms of dollars and number of bills.
Number of bills, okay.
So that number is increasing year after year. Number of bills, total dollars. We've already hit our budget for this year. So I really am not concerned about hitting this excise number this year or next year.
So you feel confident, did you exceed your 8.3 million for FY '24?
Yes.
By how much?
We're approaching 9 million right now.
Oh,
And
okay.
and growing.
Wait, there's gonna be, do you feel like you're gonna hit 8.5 going into next year
Yes,
without an issue?
yes.
Do you feel like you'll hit 9?
Well, that would be, so to go up to that level would be concerning. So again, you don't want to overestimate your revenues, because otherwise if you don't hit them, then you have to cut things.
Sure.
So we felt that this was, Ian and I spent a lot of time on this, and we feel very comfortable with these local receipts.
How about meals tax? You feel the same way about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
So we extensively have analyzed these local receipts. And again, you don't want to be over zealous, because that would be, we'd have to then cut the budget in other areas. So, again, you want to come in conservatively, and you want to be able to at least meet and exceed them, and the hope is to exceed them.
So you feel in this municipal budget that we have, that you are conservative in your revenue projections overall?
I feel that I'm appropriately conservative, yes.
Okay. I'll yield for now. I just wanted to speak on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council C5, Council Vice President Pereira.
Yeah.
I don't know, just,
I think in talking about those revenues, we do have a lot more people that have moved into the city with buildings going up. Everybody's got a car, so you know that that's going to go up. But you talked about doing a deep dive into trash. That deep dive into trash, is the legal department doing a deep dive as well into the contract?
Yes, that's actually been going on for months. So not only have there been numerous conversations with our different haulers at the different stages. Easy, as you know, picks up everything from solid waste to recycling to lawn. And then we have different haulers that actually do the actual carrying away of the different items. So pickup and disposal. The contract itself, as you're very aware, has a lot of problems with it. It has the commercial items that we stopped some time ago, more than a month ago now, I guess. It has a number of provisions regarding who takes title to the trash and all sorts of other things. We have been digging into that. We're in negotiations with attorneys for different entities that are responsible for our trash, trying to work out some of the inconsistencies in our different contracts. So we've been working on it for quite some time.
Because our tonnage is higher than it was.
So
Do we
there
know
seems
why
to.
it's higher?
We don't. So once we stop commercial, in the first month, the tonnage seemed to be allegedly higher than it was in the month previous when we had commercial, which makes no sense at all. So we're actually in the midst of a fairly robust look into why that could be.
Where is our trash being dumped now?
Well, it depends on what, which ones you're talking about. So we have some that goes up to the transfer station in the north part of the city. It depends on whether it's Republic or Harvey or Easy that's taking it away, but there's a couple different locations.
And all of the items in the contract with all of these companies are being fulfilled per contract?
When you say being fulfilled, like all of the duties, all of the
Right,
the agreements?
everything that's in the contract that we have with people, are they doing everything that they're supposed to be doing? Because I know that in some of the contracts, if they don't do certain things, there are fines, et cetera. Have we looked into any of that? Or
I'll
is
say it's-
that what you're looking into now?
That's what we're looking into now. I don't want to offer a legal opinion, because that's not my role here. But I will say that it's being looked into, and we're trying to create accountability around the terms of the contracts.
When do you think that we'll be made aware of that? Because for the past, I don't know how many years, we've been talking about trash. It's a tough item to talk about, but there needs to be a resolution. And it's gonna be a tough vote for all of us to take, but we have to take that vote. We have to get our arms around that. It's crazy. How much are we still paying, and I couldn't find that in here, for the trash trucks that we no longer have?
I think that bond is done now.
Can you
I
speak into
thought
the
it was
microphone, please?
500,000
Please speak
this
into the
year.
microphone, whoever's
So
on
I
speaking.
think, we had started to look, we did look into that, and I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember, but I believe that bond has been paid, it's not, I don't think we're paying on it anymore.
I thought we still had 2 years to go, 500,000, 500,000, and then 200 and something.
You might be right, but I'll check on that and get back to you.
It's the next meeting.
Yeah.
It's,
No, I'm just
yeah,
curious,
it's from
because we were
when you
talking
sold
about
the trash trucks and there was still a
Yeah.
bond, yes.
Well, if you could let us know for the
Yes,
next meeting.
yes.
And I think a city this size deserves to have its own purchasing agent. Arlene Robinette, when she was here, did an awesome job. All the departments should go through there, because what happens is, some departments will say this is an emergency and go out and purchase something if it's under a certain amount. And a purchasing agent, we don't want to get in trouble with the Attorney General or anybody else. You need to have a specific person. The last time we were here, I believe Ms. Salmon was going to do stuff, and you were gonna do stuff, working together to do what else can you do? You can only spread yourself so thin, and I don't think that's fair, and we tend to do that in the city. Ian's kind of carrying the load of 2 jobs, and he's doing a great job at it, but is it fair? You know, we are a big city, and we need that, and we talked about that at the ordinance committee meeting, and I think that that should stay in the budget, and we should hire a purchasing agent, because that's needed.
So it's
That's
also,
absolutely needed,
sorry.
in my opinion. You just can't have people, everybody's going for training for this. Have a purchasing agent, and everybody goes to the purchasing agent. We want to train people for everything, so whatever else they're doing, we're also going to train you for this and train you for that. We need to have specific people to do a specific job.
So I agree 100%, but the reason for the training is that the specs for a requirement, for instance, you know, we developed a spec from the parks the other day for some fencing. The people that are in that department, they actually know the need. They also know the conditions on the ground better than anybody, right? So if the spec for a requirement that we're gonna purchase is gonna come forward, if we have somebody that's trained in purchasing and also knows firsthand the requirements of their department, that's the ideal, and then that goes up through the processes up to a purchasing agent who then says yes.
And they come in and meet with the purchasing agent and give them all the specs, and the purchasing agent makes their decision. It's like, you know, 2 people to do 1 job.
So-
It doesn't make sense to me.
So it's also the aggregate of the vendor. So like if you spend, you know, over $10,000 with the vendor,
Right.
but if the schools do it and then we do it, we're the same entity, same EIN. So it's like you have to be able to pay attention to aggregates as well, and makes it a little more complicated.
Exactly, if they're getting from the same service that the city's getting, or going to the same.
Well, or even like multiple
purchase.
departments within the city, otherwise they could consider it bid splitting. So there's a lot more to it that we just need to make sure we're doing things correctly.
So I agree 100%, we need a purchasing agent.
We
And it was
do.
my mistake not to believe that we didn't. And, you know, I come from a place where when you make a mistake, you admit it. You know, there are definitely environments where that's gonna get you shanked, but,
Yeah.
like here. But I'm just admitting that I made the mistake, that we want to correct the mistake. And although I will respectfully disagree that I don't think it's as simple as all going to a single person, because that's what was happening under prior purchasing agents, and there was a lot of things getting missed because there are so many different steps to it. So yeah, I should have seen the need for not only additional training, but a single purchasing agent. I didn't get it. I'm seeing it now in process, and I've changed my
I've been here a
position.
while, and when Arlene Robinette was doing it, and she had, you know, an assistant there, it was run very smoothly. And then all of a sudden, when she retired out, you know, we had Tammy doing what, 3 jobs? Burnt her out, she left. You can't do it all. I just think we need to have more focus on this, because I think it's really important to make sure we get the bids. We do the openings of the bids at a certain time, et cetera, and you have to follow all the procurement laws. And I wouldn't want to see something being done accidentally, not saying that anybody would do anything on purpose, but accidentally because of lack of experience. So I think you need somebody who knows what they're doing. I'll hold for now. I'll give for now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Counsel seat 7, Counsel Quozo.
Yeah, just want to continue on the conversation with the purchasing agent. Why does the school department have their own?
So we're actually, they've actually started getting some training, I think 2, if not 3 people. And we are going to then delegate anything under 50,000 to them, though we'll still be responsible. But they can't just do it separately completely, because it's, again, we're still one EIN, we're one entity.
Yeah, which I figured that was the
Yeah.
case, but they don't have, do they not have a person that then reports back here for their purchasing, particular for schools?
So that's what they're working on. So they're identifying someone, they've told us probably who it is, and then we will then, we have to file that person's name with the IG's office.
And where does that cost come from? On the school department side?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Aiken, I'm sure, I apologize if I missed this, but the rationale of why it went from 62 to 75, though it's a vacant position, the purchasing agent.
So, I can answer. So
Yeah.
we had advertised for purchasing agent, and we actually had interviewed people going back over a year and a half ago, and even this is the 75 is not going to cut to get a full-fledged purchasing agent. I mean, they're making significantly more in other cities. So again, like, we haven't finalized the plan, but the plan is to, work on it with the mayor and the administration, and again, we will then come back and we'll have our definitive plan, but we know that we're not gonna find someone, we've had difficulty, we've looked for a long time, and so now we're looking to try to make something that will work for us, keep us in compliance, and, not burn everybody out.
It's fair. So let's go back to local receipts now that you've answered that. Licensing and permits, it's down 47,000. I'm curious, with the new online licensing system, at this point, is it helping to drive those local receipts at all?
So again, so licensing and permits, so those were done at the departmental levels, and we talked to them about it, and that's what they are seeing that there's some permits that are decreasing because, there was a big boom during COVID, and so they feel that those are gonna decrease a bit. We are seeing a lot, because we process the OpenGov payments, in the collector's office. I don't know what the average.
Well, since November, when we started this process, we've processed over 2,900 licenses and permit application payments. And the great thing about it is people don't have to go up and down from the 5th floor every time they come in here, back and forth. That's been a big help. And we're also getting faster at processing the payments, and we're getting faster at doing the tax certifications, because those are now digital as well. So the whole thing has just been expedited, and people seem to be really liking it, and,
Yeah. I had the pleasure of doing it myself for the parish feast that we just had recently. But my question was, when you first apply for it, there's a fee you pay. I think it was like, I don't know, $29. That goes to the processee, or that goes to the city?
the convenience fee for
Yeah.
using it, no, we don't keep that money, no.
So that goes to
That's
the-
for
the service.
OpenGov and the credit card companies and that type
Okay.
of thing.
And the other part is the licensing fee itself that
Right,
goes
and
to the
that's
city?
correct.
Okay. All right. So they're comfortable with the idea that's probably gonna go down going into next year?
Yeah, so there's a few different departments that hits, and they do feel that it's adjusting down. Again, we don't really, we're talking about, we were pretty conservative. We met with the departments that their revenues hit in local receipts, and, we feel comfortable with these.
Okay. All right, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council C2, Council Dion?
On page 132, treasurer payroll. So it's to be determined, but the title is changed from project specialist to project specialist / tax title. Is that a responsibility that person always performed, or is that an additional responsibility?
No, so that project specialist, in the treasurer's office, has been always handling the majority of that is tax title. I just put that in, I added that to the end so that we could, be a little more transparent, because we use the project specialist to do a lot of helping with the collections and the payment plans that that our attorney also works with. And I can tell you that we are, if you want to compare us to other gateway cities and municipalities, our receivables are far less than New Bedford's, and I actually know the number. So that position more than pays for itself, because I can tell you that, so for our tax levy, which is very similar to New Bedford, our outstanding receivables in '22 were 1.4 million, where New Bedford was 4.1 million, but our tax liens and tax title were 4.7 million, where New Bedford's are 14.2 million. So, this is a very important position, it's very customer service oriented, and it works with our taxpayers, because we don't want to be foreclosing on homes, and we want people to stay in their homes, and we want to work with them.
Agreed. We still, however, do have Attorney Thomas, who does tax title for us, correct?
Oh, yes. But that's
But that's
also at a late, when you, yeah,
Yeah, it's
you're dealing with the
later in
land
the
court,
game.
and, yeah,
And he's paid entirely out of that tax title.
yes.
So there's no money out of this, there's money out of the tax title, arrearage, but there's no additional money from the city budget that goes to pay his fee.
So this is another one of those departments that you go from a 1.4% increase in salary to a 15.1% increase in salary. Again, the discrepancy.
So our treasurer's salaries went up 5% overall.
Overall.
They're budgeted to go up, so there's a small, they are, again, they're union employees, and they are, you know, we are in contract negotiations with ASME right now, so there's a small increase budgeted.
So, one of the positions in FY '24, from FY '24 to FY '25, went up $6,000.
So that position we had somebody at a lower step. I'm trying to remember who that was. Yeah, so I mean, again, those are all based on the contract negotiations and based on steps, so I don't know which particular person you're talking about.
Which job class description, Counselor?
Senior accountant, the last one.
The last senior accountant.
So that is somebody that came over to us from another department at top step. So I'm trying to remember who was in the position prior. But again, those.
So it was somebody that was already working for the city?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
As you know, when a union position's open, it's offered internally first. So anybody who's already working for the city in a similar capacity can bid on that position. That particular person was already in another department. She was already at the top step of the grade for that. So it was a big jump when she came over. It's not the same person that was there at the beginning of last year.
So back to this whole purchasing issue. So yes, you made a mistake. I think shanked is a little extreme. Reamed might be more like it. My problem is this, that we had the discussions. The ordinance committee asked the questions. The ordinance committee, at the time, said we needed a purchasing agent. And we were told everything other than that. So my question is this. So now if you're going to get, you've got $75,000 put, funding a vacant position. So where did the money come from for the new position? That we weren't supposed to call a new position because we weren't creating a new position, because we were taking money from two other positions to fund it.
The money came from the assistant auditor position.
The majority of it.
So we had money budgeted for an auditor and an assistant auditor last year. We then promoted someone to auditor, and we used the combination of those funds to fund this other position.
The combination of auditor and assistant auditor
Yes.
is what funded it now.
And so the vacant purchasing agent, we actually are, so again, our assistant treasurer has stepped into that role and is spending a significant amount of her day and working extra hours to help us, you know, complete all these tasks and put out the bids.
So the assistant auditor's salary in FY '24 was $77,648. So do we know where the, so we don't know what the dollar amount is gonna be for this new position, but we're paying somebody to work in a position.
We're paying somebody a stipend out of this money.
Are you talking about the analyst position?
Yes.
So we do have a sum certain for the analyst position, yes.
You have a what, I'm sorry?
A sum certain?
A sum certain?
Sorry, lawyer talk. I gotta
Some
really
certains.
break that
Yeah.
habit. We do have a identified salary for that position. It's
Well,
not
I assume that's what
$125,000.
you meant, but,
So I answered that when Councilor Reposa asked that at the beginning. Her salary is set, and then there's a raise that will happen with her contract. It's in CPI for January. So the
okay,
amount-
well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I am going to interrupt you because I get that. But we don't know what the salary is.
Yes, we do.
What is it?
So her salary started, I believe, at 115, and then there's a CPI that will happen.
Oh, okay, but we don't have that.
Well, so she just started 2 weeks ago. The budget was being done and printed out before that. The budget was actually submitted before I had that final number, so.
And yesterday, when we came in, we had 4 pages to replace pages for modifications. All right, I'm not gonna keep going round and round with this, but this whole thing is actually giving me a headache.
So those 4 pages didn't change the front of the budget, those 4 pages were just some edits.
Correct.
Yeah, so they didn't change the budget.
All right, so in terms of the appropriation. So the appropriation on page 5 is $412,934,533 budget. Can you walk us through? Obviously, local receipts are gonna compensate some of this. So, ordinary revenue and municipal receipts, 402,645,738, which is a difference of $10 million, 288,795. So can you walk us through this appropriation and explain how the appropriation will be met?
So, I mean, if you go to page 3 and you look at all of our resources, so again, with our resources and our property taxes and you've already voted on water, sewer, and EMS, is where we use those numbers to get to the appropriation. Each of those appropriations are just on the expenditure side, which is what you would vote on, and those all tie out back to all of the pages for each of the departments.
I know it's not on our agenda, and I should have asked it last night, but at the same token, you weren't at the table. And maybe it's gonna come up another night, I don't know. It's just one quick, easy question. The grant writer had an increase of $4,000. Half of her salary comes from the school department. And again, this has nothing to do with whether I believe people deserve the pay they're getting or don't. That's no reflection on that, so I'm gonna say that a zillion times. My question is, half her salary is on the school side, half her salary is on the city side. Did her salary go up $4,000 on both sides, or did the city only take the impact of the $4,000?
No, so her salary is split 50-50 between the city side and the school side. So that what you're seeing reflected is what I was instructed to budget for her, for the city's half of it, and then the school department will pick up the other half.
So you're asking if the raise is equal on both sides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
For now, I'll yield, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Just want to ask a question. How many more scenarios are there in this budget where something happened after the budget was submitted to the council, but the council was not aware of any positions, and how much dollar amounts are with those positions? Is that scenario that you just mentioned about the $115,000 the only position that was added or created or put in the budget afterwards?
No, well, I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by afterwards. That was submitted in this budget right from the beginning. That wasn't added after.
Well, it wasn't in the budget. We were
It-
just,
No, it's in the budget, so what was budgeted was $125,000, because at the time, we didn't have a final salary when I was preparing the budget.
oh, I thought I heard you say that
No.
the budget was submitted prior to that.
So then, we submitted the budget, and there was negotiations happening, and what the salary that was settled on was, I believe, $115. And there's also CPI in that will happen in January. So we've left the $125 in, we'd already submitted the budget, because we know that we're gonna need something, to be able to cover that raise.
Okay, thank you.
So just to answer the question, the way I understand it, Mr. President, the only scenario where there was a outstanding position that wasn't finalized yet in terms of an actual,
Dollar
I'm
amount.
not gonna say some certain, I'm gonna say a final salary amount,
Yeah.
is this position.
Okay,
The
that's my
only
question.
other
How many other
changes-
positions were there? So-
The only other changes is there may be a few people that have since gone to a different position. For instance, there's a veterans clerk who went to a position in the clerk's office, but that doesn't change the position. That position will be hired for. This is the only one where there was a sort of a vague number that was finalized after the budget was submitted.
That's exactly what I was trying to find out. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Appreciate it. Counselor in seat 8, Counselor Sampson?
Thank you, Council President. I have more questions now about the purchasing. But I'm gonna start with a comment, because it angers me when the comments that I hear sometimes. So after Counselor in seat 2, Counselor Dion had questions, and rightfully so, because we sat in that ordinance committee meeting and we asked these questions. And I respect you, Attorney Aiken, to say, look, it was a mistake. I respect that. It was a mistake. We asked questions. We didn't. All right, we come full circle. But to insinuate that this council doesn't understand purchasing, which is what you said, well, it's hard to understand purchasing, is insulting. Because I'm going to tell you something. This council does understand. For myself, for the latter part of my career, I've worked in federal grants. I know all about purchasing, and I can go across this line that people understand purchasing. So we do understand. The problem is we're not understanding your process. And so we have questions, and we're accountable to the people that voted us in. So to install and to leave it there and just say, well, people don't understand, purchasing, and then if prices are high, you just can't go with the lowest bid. Listen, that's insulting, and it insults all of us. We understand, and that's why we have the questions. And it's a confusing process that came out of your department. Probably something that didn't go by with the very expensive consultant that you continue to have, which was the second question now that I have. Counselor Raposa said, why doesn't the school department get their own purchaser? And you said it's under one EIN, and they can't. So, and I don't know the answer to this, but can an EIN only have one person purchasing for it? I understand that's the city and it's the school department and the government here in this building, but they can't have two people under one EIN doing the purchasing, or is it just one person?
So I didn't say that to insult you in any way or anybody in that council, because there's a lot of two purchasing, and we've been working through that. And as we've all been educating ourselves and doing professional development with all of our departments, there's things that with people who've been here for a long time that we're learning something new every day. So that wasn't meant to insult anybody on this council. What I meant by one EIN is we are one legal entity.
Right.
So all of that has to flow through one purchasing department so that you can do it as the aggregate. So we can't silo it and do it separately and treat them treat totals
No.
this event. So that's what I meant by that. So I think there was a misunderstanding, and
Okay,
I
I did.
apologize if that was the case.
Great,
Because
so I did misunderstand that. So it does bring up a good point, then I go back to what he's saying, that maybe that's an idea because the purchasing for the school department is a massive undertaking. I mean, they're purchasing all the time. So maybe, since things have been getting wrong here, and maybe that's something to look at. Maybe we look at having, under one entity, you have two people doing the purchasing. Is there someone that can do and report to another person? It's a lot of work. I mean, time and time again, we have had one person doing the purchasing, and there's been a lot of problems. I think that Mr. Atkins brought up some really good ideas when he was saying it's better to get more people trained than not. So when my colleague in seat 7 brings up an idea that says, hey, can someone from the school department also do purchasing? And it's like, oh, well, it's on one entity, one EIN. I feel like that's deflecting, it's word salad, and it's not quite the right answer because you can have more than one people under one EIN doing purchasing, correct?
Well, we are, so I'm not sure if I did say that we've talked to the school department, and we're going to be delegating everything under 50,000 to the school department for them to follow the laws and do the purchasing.
So I just want to get that I don't know the legal laws. I'm certain, and maybe my colleague in seat 1 could know the answer. Can you have more than one person under an EIN? Can I ask that? I don't know how to properly ask that.
Through the chair, sure.
Through the council
If you
president, can
wanna
I
ask
ask
him.
council, what is the answer to that question?
Can I take a shot first?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do you mind?
The answer is yes.
So you could have 10, 20 people under one EIN do a purchase.
Exactly, thank you.
Here's the problem.
Yes.
Is, if the schools, because let's say they're ordering T-shirts and they're ordering bags and they're ordering other things
Yeah.
for different events.
Yeah.
And without talking to each other, Morton may decide to go through a certain printer to do that. And then Durfee may go to the same printer and not even realize, and then all of a sudden you add all those things up and you're way over the threshold and no one has done the process. It can just as easily happen in Government Center.
Yeah.
Same building. And so that, I think, is that concern about the one EIN. It's not just one purchaser. It doesn't have to be like one person with all the power.
Right, but doesn't it make sense? Now, go back to your original idea. It was a good idea.
I don't remember what my original idea. It was so long ago.
You have one person in the school department that does, and I think that's what he said, and it was kind of like brushed under the rug, but one person, not 20 people ordering T-shirts, one person. and one person here that talks to each other. Makes a lot of sense. I'm just saying, maybe we should consider what he said. I just feel like it was swept under the rug. Those are my comments. I understand that, you don't want everybody, but I will yield, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council C1, Council Kadim.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I'll answer my colleague's questions that she was asking me, which is why I raised my hand. So, and this is straight from, so the answer is yes, we can absolutely delegate all the procurement to the school department, and they would just have to figure out who their purchasing agent is going to be. And it's just through the delegation authority. So Chapter 30B, so from the IG's 30B manual, there are two types of procurement, centralized procurement and decentralized. So a lot of communities use centralized, which means you have one purchasing agent, which is what the city of Fall River currently operates under. A good majority of towns do decentralized. So that means your town administrator tends to be your purchasing agent, and then the superintendent is the purchasing agent for the schools. So we can do exactly what it is that you're stating. It just comes from the delegation, so the city would have to delegate all the authority over to the schools. And it clearly states here, let me just find it real quick. So it says, using a centralized or decentralized procurement process is a policy decision for the jurisdiction. This is not a Chapter 30B requirement. So the municipality determines whether or not they want to do decentralized or centralized. That's pretty much what I want to clarify. So
Thank you.
and quite frankly, I said this at the ordinance meeting, that the school department should be taking care of all of their purchasing requirements for all the projects. Obviously, school building projects, that's a municipal project technically. So that would still, those types of projects would still stay on the city side, but outside of that, all the procurement, in my mind, should be over on the schools. They have enough staff to be able to monitor that, for us to have a department to monitor our department and then go on and monitor everything that they're doing in terms of, purchasing of paper and, you name it. It just doesn't make any sense. So from my standpoint, I'd make sure it was decentralized. So I guess I was gonna go and ask the question, so just to become compliant, when you say compliant, what are we not compliant with?
So, I wasn't prepared to get into like all the details. I can come back to you with more of that, because I think it's a little more than that, because I believe that there was also something else that the city adopted, around purchasing, but I will, can I come back to you tomorrow with that?
Yeah,
Because I don't wanna
that's
just
fine.
start
That's why I
speaking
asked about General Law, Chapter 41, Section 103. So that establishes the purchasing department.
But I think we adopted something, but let me just check on that.
So we've adopted that. The city clerk
Yeah.
has told me that.
That's the general answer to your question, is how are we not compliant? I would argue that 41-103 does suggest there needs to be a central purchasing department through which everything flows. Subject, of course, to the decision to decentralize. By having department-level purchasing trained people dealing with specs and doing all that stuff, that's a nice idea.
Yeah.
It just doesn't bring it to its necessary legal conclusion, which is what I missed.
Right, so I guess also to educate, the council, if we did not have a purchasing agent and there was nobody on file and there was nobody in that position, all that means is we still have to follow Chapter 30B, all the requirements, procurement requirements, with the exception that we cannot go out with RFPs. We can only do IFBs, which means, very similar to an RFP, you put out a bid, it's an invitation for bids, and you have to take the lowest bid. The RFP allows you to bypass the lowest bid and have alternative criteria that you're gonna do in addition to bids. So that's the only difference about having a procurement agent and not having a procurement agent, so. I was just trying to figure out in terms of the compliance what we were missing. And listen, I gotta be honest, and I appreciate, the statements that were coming up saying that, you didn't recognize how detailed the procurement process was, but, I understand my colleague's frustration, because it was a lengthy discussion when we were going through the organizational flow chart, making sure that we weren't adding positions, going back and forth to make sure that, we understood the long-term plan for each department. And I think that was one of the requirements that we asked the administration to come back was, take a look at this, make sure that we're not missing anything, come back to us, because we didn't want to come back in 2, 3, 4 years and say it's not working, we want to move in a different direction. So I think that's part of the frustration that's coming up. And I know a lot of my colleagues that were on the ordinance committee voted for it, even though they were not necessarily in favor of it, right? So we're trying to support the administration and then coming back, their frustration is what it is. So with that, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor seat 7?
Yeah, just on the purchasing, so on the schools department side, when purchase order is put forward, the signature on the bottom is the superintendent of schools.
Correct.
But ultimately, the person who purchases said item is not the superintendent here. It comes back to City Hall.
Everything flows through City Hall.
It has
Yeah.
to.
So, and that's always something that kind of confused me, that the fact that at the end of the day, everything flows through City Hall. The school department doesn't have their own, like we said, purchaser, but does the school department have their own HR department?
But
Does that flow through here too?
Yeah, but their
ultimately?
staff does flow, so part of their staff does flow through HR.
Okay,
So for all their health insurance, benefits, insurance.
so at the end of the day.
Like ultimately onboarding them,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that kind of wraps around my question then. Okay, I yield, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions? Okay. Move on to the next section. Purchasing Department.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, if I
Counselor
could.
C1? Counselor
So my
C1.
colleague in C2 just asked about the appropriation, so and I don't know that she really got the answer she was looking for. So the appropriation orders that we have before us, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, so page 5. I think what she was looking to do, if you look at the highlighted section up top, it says, be it ordered that the annual budget for the fiscal year 25 from various funds is $412,934,553, of which the amount of $402,645.
$533.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure what I said, but you're right.
533.
You said 50, you said 53.
I believe you, I believe
It's
you.
33.
I'm a little dyslexic.
Don't want to get
tired.
don't want to get the clerk running and changing numbers on
No,
us.
no. So then you have 402,645, 738 to be raised from ordinary revenue municipal receipts for appropriation as follows. I think what she's looking to see this, like when you look at your revenue, she's trying to figure out what it is. So mostly we're not including local receipts. Is that correct? Because we don't raise,
We're not including some local receipts,
Right.
and then also your, from the cherry sheet, the assessments, you have to take into account the assessments, which we then subtract out of revenues. I mean, I can probably break it down simpler and have something tomorrow to show you.
could you do that?
Yeah, that's
Okay. Because I think she's just trying to tie it out to make sure that, because when she comes out, when she did her number, it was like $10 million off, and I told her it was some local receipts. But the local receipts are 22 million, so you must be capturing some, or you either, to your point, netting the assessments.
Yeah, so we'll get that.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. There being no further question, move on to the next one, Purchasing Department, or do you think we've already tackled that enough? Counselor C2?
I just want to make one more comment. So I looked at the FY '24 budget. The difference in the auditor's pay, what the assistant assessor's pay was, and actually those two numbers combined fall almost $5,000 short of the 115 salary. So when there's an increase, the funding isn't totally coming from those two positions.
Can you say that again? So you're saying both positions
FY
together?
FY '24.
Four, yeah.
The auditor's salary was $125,000. So if you deduct the present salary,
Yep,
the difference was $32,300.
right.
The assistant auditor's, not annual, but total salary was $77,945.
Okay,
Which
got it.
totals $110,245.
I see what you're saying.
So those don't pay that salary in total. And, yeah, 90%. I have no problem with
Yep.
that. But once you work in your CPI, which I don't think is gonna be 9%.
No
Because
way.
to get from 115 and 125, we're looking at a 9% CPI. I don't think that's gonna happen. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's gonna be that high. Yeah. So yes, so I guess the point of the matter is of some of this appropriation or some of this salary has to come from somewhere else other than just that. That's all I want to say. Thank you. With
Thank
that,
you,
I
Counselor.
yield.
You yield, Counselor?
Yes, I yielded.
Mr. President, can I just ask?
Absolutely.
So
Counselor
this is
C1,
just a
Counselor
general conversation, or discussion, I should say. So all the contracts, do all the individual contracts have CPI, or do some have the base salary plus just COLA adjustments?
There's actually one more category, so there might be 7 to 9 contracts that have CPI. There are some that just traditionally are tied to the COLA adjustments based upon AFSCME, which is our biggest union. And then there's some that don't have any COLA or CPI indicated. It's a conversation with the mayor per annum.
Okay, so you only establish the first year of the contract
That's
and
right.
then with renewals? Okay. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, there being no further questions, we move on to the purchasing department. I think we've batted that around.
I think we had enough
Any
of that.
questions for that? Okay. Move on to the assessors. Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Reposo, will come down, please?
He's probably saving himself.
Good evening, Mr. Lane.
Good evening. Good evening. So my first question is found on page 116, under management consulting. I just want to clarify if the percentage in that column is an error, because it says FY '24 revised, nothing. FY '25 proposed, 65,000.
So that's actually, so when you're doing like in Excel and you do the formula and it's, over, so now you're multiplying, it's doing the division over 0, that's the problem.
Okay, I figured that was the case. On page 117, on the list of payroll details, it lists other personnel at 6,264. Can you explain what that is, please?
So, because of the cyclical inspections, all these employees are 35 hours a week, but we are not sure if we're going to also have to do some additional hours to help us with getting all of that done. So we budgeted a little bit of extra to cover if we have to have some people work, just over 35 hours.
So why isn't that an overtime line?
Well,
item?
so, because we wouldn't keep it as overtime, because it's 35 hours, we wouldn't go over 40 hours a week,
Okay,
so.
so it's just kind of
We wouldn't be
additional.
paying it, we wouldn't be paying it overtime, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I want to go, where am I? Bear with me one second, please. On page 116, under other purchase services, down 5%, but can you break that down, Mr. Lane, if possible?
Sure.
Exactly what all that is?
So RRC is our personal property vendor. They go out and inspect the personal property, so that they're roughly around 55,000 off the top of my head. And then I also have Matt Thomas helps me with the ATB Appellate Tax Board cases. So that's part of the consulting fees there as well.
Okay. So that covers the entire,
I didn't use the whole budget this year, so that's why it's down 5%. I tried to cut down some of it there, so.
okay. And on the reassessments, are all those done at this point? The plan was to reassess all the properties, and where are we along in that process?
So back in 2021, I believe the council approved somewhere around $340,000 to re-inspect 12,000 parcels of the 21,000 parcels. The first question you had for the 65,000, that's a program I'm trying to implement where we can go out and do 2,000 inspections a year, cyclical inspections, to try to keep up with the Department of Revenue requires us to re-inspect every property once every 10 years. So obviously, the city's behind in that, and so that's where I'm trying to get this inspection program set up, so we're on track.
Okay.
So the answer is we've reviewed 12,000 so far of the 21.
Okay, and the game plan in the next few years is to complete the 21?
To do about 2,000 each
1,000 a
year
year.
instead of trying to come up with a huge chunk of money again every 5 years to So currently, I believe the Department of Revenue said we're at 67% compliance.
Okay. And when you, these inspections plan the 2,000 per year, is that strictly residential, business, or a mix of both?
It's a mix of both. It's a mix of residential, commercial, and exempt properties
And how are those prioritized?
by last inspection date.
Okay, so the oldest ones is. from
Move to the top of the list.
Got it.
That's correct.
Fair enough. On computer services, the Patriots property software, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was an update to that
So
online.
the update was completed in February this year. We're up and running. It's working great. I've actually already opened up the 2026 roll, and we're able to put in the splits and combines already for next year without having to hold the product until January.
Okay. That's all I have for now. I yield. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor seat 5, Counsel Vice President Pereira.
Yeah, I just have a question, Mr. Lane. On the auto allowance,
Yes.
has that gone up? I know gas is more expensive. I mean, what's administration looking at for gas allowance for people or automobile allowance?
So it's a flat fee. I believe it's $130 a month. Myself, Nell, and Doug Rebello, all three of us go out in the field. And
Right.
it's a flat fee. I mean, the city's, I believe, 21 miles.
Right.
But it's been the same, and I think it's sufficient.
Hasn't been changed in a long time. I just wondered, I mean, they're okay with it?
I haven't heard any grumblings. You know, I'm sure, you know, we don't have city vehicles, but I don't know that having a city vehicle versus some auto allowance.
What is the amount, $120 a month?
130,
$130 a month?
yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
It's $1,560 a year. But, you know, cars are expensive, I mean, the wear and tear on vehicles and the price of gas, I'm just wondering, all of our auto allowances, you know, it's all basically the same. Has the administration looked at, can they get gas less expensive, so many gallons of gas or something?
So this is kind of an ongoing conversation
Right.
with the gas specifically.
Right.
And one of the things that was a problem with letting people use, get the gas from the pumps at DCM is that there was alleged misuse. So we got this fob system, but then there was a sense that, okay, we had already stopped it, we're just gonna give people a gas allowance. And then we added a wear and tear. So we have a vehicle allowance. This is not, this doesn't apply to the assessor. But with regard to DCM, we have people
Right.
getting a fuel allowance as well as a wear and tear on their vehicle. There's even some indication that that may not be quite sufficient, so we're gonna look at that possibly in this contract, but probably in the next. So it's something we're looking at. We have not yet gone to a mileage allowance yet, where you just pay a flat fee per mile. Because we don't have any sample size of how many miles our inspectors, for
Right.
instance, are traveling. We've asked for that so we can assess it and actually get a sense of how many miles people really are traveling. And if we're either not paying enough or paying too much. That's
Well,
something
at
that's an
least they're
ongoing
able to
study.
take it out on their taxes, depending on how they file, that,
If they
you know,
file.
they can have so much per mile of, if they keep a log
Right.
of how much they're doing. Does Nellie and Doug go out pretty much all the time?
So Doug is out every day. Nell is out part-time. She's in the office part-time. I go out, doing inspections as well.
Do they have any magnets at least on their cars when they're going out, so people know and they could be identified, at least when they're working?
Yes,
Not that they would wear them, have them all the time.
they just say assessor's office.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
all right. Thank you.
You, Counselor?
And, I'm sorry, property, Patriots property, how come that went down about 5,000?
So the software,
Because it's a new software now.
it's a new software, and we went to cloud hosting. We're not hosting in-house any
Oh,
longer. And so I believe the server fee and stuff, so that is the accurate fee.
Yeah, because they did change the format of it, because you kind of have to open it up before you can put in street or owner or, whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
For my eyes, it was no good. I liked it the old way, but I know change is there, so I just have to zoom in on it. But I know that it's a new kind of site when you go on Patriots. So, and I just wondered why it went down, but the server, that's reason why. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
With that, I yield, Mr. President.
Thank you, Counsel. Counsel C2, Counsel Dion.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Only a couple of questions. So this past year, or maybe we're still in it, was the 10-year assessment, correct? That was,
So every 5 years. So Department of Revenue does a full, they call it a full or a cyclical, every 5 years. So that was FY 2024.
okay, so the 10-year mark is?
So we
another-
have to revisit every parcel once in every 10 years.
Correct, and you said you were 67% of the way
According
through
to
that.
Department of Revenue at the November of 2024, or November of 2023, we're at 67%. Obviously, every year that passes, that number gets worse, because the numbers change.
So what's your timeline for completing the 33% that's left?
So I have to give them a report every 5 years. I print out, or it's an Excel spreadsheet of every parcel and the last visit date. So if we start this 2,000 every year going forward, we'll be on the cycle. Department of Revenue is pretty lenient with that as long as you have a system in place, showing some type of, progress.
Because how many parcels do we have in the city? It's got to,
21,069.
yeah. So it actually takes you the 10 years to
Pretty
keep up
close to get
Not
it.
even quite keep up with it.
Right, we're adding parcels every year with the splits
And
and,
the number of parcels is just going to keep going up
correct.
with the waterfront development and the new housing stock and, on page 117, other personnel, not a big dollar amount, but it's $6,264. Can you tell me what that is?
So, we actually, that question was asked, and
Oh.
so because of getting up to date with all the cyclicals, we anticipate we may need to have some employees work some extra hours. So we budgeted some extra funds to be able to cover that. That's,
So essentially, it's overtime.
Counsel, she
money.
did explain this answer like 5
I didn't
minutes
hear
ago.
it, I missed it, I'm sorry. I was
Okay.
looking at something, it happens. I hear a lot of people ask the same question more than once during conversations. Okay, so, thank you, with that I yield, that's all I had.
Thank you. Counsel C4, Counsel Kilby.
Yes, I would just add that this, my opinion, this is one of the most tight apartments in this building.
I appreciate that.
And one of the most important. Everything starts in the assessor's office. So you're probably happy that it's every 5 years instead of 3.
That is correct, yeah, it used to be every 3, yes.
Because it's a monumental task, if you think about it, right?
It is,
There's so many types of property, there's so much property, and your office sets the values on property to send out the tax bills.
that is correct.
So, when I looked at the gas line item, I mean, come on. And, it's just, such an important department, and it seems to me that you're doing a wonderful job. Yeah, it looks like you have a great staff. And, what are your directives? The Bureau of Local Assessment sends directives down,
Yep.
if you can, off the top of your head, not.
So the biggest thing is neighborhood redelineation, so just looking at the neighborhood boundaries, the, obviously the cyclical inspections, and then they have a few that are the same bullet points every 5 years, which is making sure that we have income and expense information returned, meaning, I think last year we had around 24%, which is very low. Some of the communities will charge the commercial and industrial businesses if they don't return them. Here, we do not, just to try to get that number up. Same thing with forms of list. That's one of the other standard directives that they put out there to make sure that you're getting enough forms of list returned.
Okay. So just a little bit of humor here. I recall, it's very, very important to have a very good relationship with the local agent, as you know, who's from the Bureau,
Yes.
to get through the reval. So just a piece of advice, take them to Marcucci's all the time.
Nice.
And that's from experience.
Thanks.
I yield, thank you.
Thank you, Counsel. Counselor seat 3, Counselor Hart.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Just a quick question. Your department, do you know of any other departments in the gateway cities throughout the Commonwealth that have, do they have this amount of people in your department? Do you know that, or do you?
So typically, they have a lot more.
Right, that was my.
So, City of New Bedford has, I believe it's around 12, maybe, where we're 6. New Bedford has, I believe, 29,000 parcels, so a few more parcels than we have. City of Attleboro, maybe not a gateway city, but they don't do any inspections in-house. Everything is subbed out there, and they have 5 people in their house, and they have 16,000 parcels there. Those are the ones that I'm familiar with.
So when you say at 67 compliant, then that's good for what you have.
Yes,
So are they, those particular cities that are our size, are they at a higher compliant rate, or?
I'm not really sure. I know like City of New Bedford they have some field staff or had. I'm not sure if they're replacing them as the attrition. And I know they're using Patriot, I believe, to do some field inspections there as well. Dartmouth's using Vision. So I'm not sure what compliance the other cities and towns are.
And how many folks do you have that go out in the field?
So myself, but I'm not out every day. I have one gentleman that's out every day, and then Nell is out part-time.
And say, how about New Bedford or Lowell or Attleboro?
So Attleboro has no staff that goes out. They
Okay.
sub everything out to vendors.
Okay,
I'm not sure what New Bedford has left as far as staff. I know they had a pretty decent field staff previously, but my understanding is they're not replacing the people as they're leaving.
okay, but I'm just, you gotta assume that if they have 12, you've got, well, what did New Bedford have?
I think they have about 12 people in their office
12, you
there,
gotta
yeah.
assume that they have more people out in the field, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is correct.
That's the only first thing that just, like, when I looked at the department and what you do.
Sure.
And I'm kinda just got back on the council, and, I know what the past assessors did. They've got a monumental, like Councilor Kilby said, a monumental job, so, I don't know, I'd maybe not this year, but maybe next year, recommend that you, if we can, get more people in there for you, so I yield with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move
Thank you.
on
Thank you.
Thanks, have a great night. Yes,
to the Auditor's Office. Welcome again. If you can, say your name and what office you were, just so the people at home know who we're talking to.
Sure. Cedric Souza, City Auditor.
Thank you. Counselor seat 7, Counselor Pozo.
Thank you. Hi, Cedric.
Hi, Andrew.
One quick question for you. Page 121, other purchase services, down $10,000.
Yep. So obviously the description includes consulting, which was where Ed was being paid out of. Obviously with timing and Emily coming on, we've decreased that
Okay.
by the 10 grand.
Okay, so really it's more tied to the consulting piece rather than the professional development piece,
That is also a piece, but the majority of it was.
was Ed's? Yeah. Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir. I yield.
Cedric, did you say that's what pays Ed Icapone's salary? Is that,
So we were paying Ed Iacopone out of that line, but we have other, like Clifton Larson that's done some training and professional development. So we are utilizing that line to do professional development across the staff in the auditor's office, and as well as we've been making some modifications with Munis that we've had to use other consultants that can help us with Munis, because we've had quite a few issues with Munis lately, unfortunately.
can I just ask one question while we're on Ed Icapone's? What does he do 4 hours a week? I've never heard of anyone working 4 hours a week. Like, what is it, when he comes in the building, who does he go see? Who does he talk to?
So Ed Iacopone has worked with, helping with some strategic, some professional development within the auditor's office. I mean,
So who does he work with? Is it an individual?
he works with he's been working the majority in the auditor's office, but he works amongst treasurers and collectors.
So when you say majority, is that like 2 hours with someone? Because
Yeah.
that's half of what he spends there, 4
I mean,
hours a week.
So again, like it was 2 days a week, then it became 1 day a week. I mean, now that Emily's on board, I mean, I don't really see Ed coming in, like, the next couple weeks at all.
So we're gonna
So-
get rid of him then? Or is he all done, or is he not gonna be done? We're gonna be coming here next year saying he's working 2 hours a
No,
week?
I see Ed being phased out over the next like month.
Oh, and the only reason I want to say this is because in 2012, we hired Mr. Nunes. And Ed Capone told us back then, we had David Grab, Sean can tell you, and then we had a major problem getting our tax bills out. We couldn't do it, so we brought in Capone as a consultant. And then he said to us, well, you know, you have to hire someone, you have to hire this guy. His recommendation was Mr. Nunes, bring in Mr. Nunes. I want to go home, I don't want to work in this building anymore, I'm all set, I want to retire. That was over 12 years ago. And he's been here ever since. And we did what he wanted. We hired the guy he wanted us to hire. Correct me if I'm wrong, Councilor Kadim. You were there. And I've been hearing every single budget hearing, Ed Capone, Ed Capone, Ed Capone, and he doesn't want to be here. And Councilor Sampson is right. We hear it all the time, but yet he's always here. His numbers go down, but I know, does his pay going up, but his hours go down? Because he's making a lot of money. It's just, let's just finish with this, and if we have to hire someone else to train our people and work with us, let's do it. But I just know 4 hours a week is kind of crazy to me.
Well,
I just want to know what he's doing.
So, yeah, I mean, Ed had actually left for several years and was
Yeah,
brought
he
back
did.
by this administration. It was, again, there was like some strategic things, there's been some more of like coaching, like, you know, working with some of our younger staff. I mean, you know, Ed has a lot of experience, he's well-respected around the state. But again, you know, Ed's been around a long time, and I think he doesn't really, he wants to retire, and we were fortunate, I mean, I'm gonna.
I think he is retired. I think he's retired for the last 12 years.
Yeah,
But he just keeps working here. He wants to retire. I want that job. I want to retire too. I'm not going to work 4 hours a week, I can tell you that. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it in my life. All right. Need I regress? Council seat,
Me? No,
Council seat 5, Council Vice President Pereira.
it's me. Well, Ed Capone came, I think, at the recommendation of Fernando Garcia.
True.
That's how we got him here initially.
That explains it.
Yep. A question that I had, this financial compliance manager, to be announced, are we hiring that person?
We did hire her.
We did.
We hired her.
So we're not doing the assistant auditor,
We're not.
so that should be bumped up. So when it says vacant assistant city auditor, we should just like scratch that, we don't.
So so in that ordinance meeting, it was asked to
You
present
just want to
it.
leave it there?
I was asked to leave it there and show that we didn't fund it, so that's what I did.
Oh, okay. All right. That was the only question I had, like, that's still in the budget, why, with nothing? But you were told to put that in so that you could show that we're not
Yes.
hiring anybody. Okay, makes sense to me,
Point
I
of
guess.
information, because it's
Council
still an
seat seven?
ordinance.
Right. Right.
I think that was the idea. We didn't want to suggest the position was gone, because it is still an ordinance.
Well, you hate to take it out of ordinance, because then if you decide, oh, yeah, we really need this position too.
Never comes back.
So maybe you should put in that we take that out of ordinance, so that we know that you're not gonna say that we need them later on.
But what if we do?
That's about it. It's the only question I have. Thank you so much, Cedric. How you doing up there, Cedric? You liking that?
Yeah.
Good, good.
Do you, Councilor?
Does Cedric have a CPI or anything? Is it,
No.
you don't? So your position is just the limit of whatever is in ordinance? It's not a contract position?
It's changed to a contract.
His position is typically gone with what AFSMI
Okay.
gets.
So
So that's
that's,
what's been adjusted into his,
so it'd be the CPI with AFSCME, whatever they get?
whatever they get, yeah.
Okay, just because I didn't see anything there, I wasn't sure. With that, I yield. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Council seat 8, Council Sampson.
So I have a statement and then a question. Cedric, you were new to this position. We've been told many times that you were new and you were young to the position. But I hear great things out of that office. Your staff likes you. You've done a great job. You're doing well. And I think it was a great fit. With that being said, you know that I was very vocal about this position. Although I want to say Emily, who is up here, is very, very knowledgeable, extremely qualified. I'm grateful that she's here. How are you finding that position to be a fit you know, are you missing that? Well, you never had the assistant auditor because you were that person. So then you move up.
Yeah.
I don't think your salary moved up, but you moved up. And you're doing a fantastic job. But this person, is she helpful to you? Have you found that position?
Yeah, she's been a great help, great addition to the team, and I enjoy working with her.
Okay. I think that's all I have to say. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Any further questions for the Auditor's Office?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cedric. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Next, we move on to analysis and compliance.
What do you say?
Did we have any questions?
Welcome.
Welcome.
State your name and what department you're just for the record so people know who you are.
My name's Emily Arpke. I'm with Financial Analyst and Compliance Manager.
Hi,
Thank
Emily.
you.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Are there any questions? Council's going to be very kind to her today. That's nice. No questions?
Just a comment, congratulations.
Thank you.
On your pending marriage.
Thank you. It's been a great 2 weeks being here, so happy to be a part of the team.
Excellent.
Well, welcome aboard. If there's anything you ever think the council should know, let us know. Council in seat 2, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm very impressed that you have been here even when you didn't have to be here, so you could observe and listen, and hopefully that's going to help you in your future days with us.
It will.
Thank you. With that, I yield.
Happy to be here. I only live 5 minutes away, so it's no problem.
She said she was going to keep up with Helen. We're going to be here till she's 90. on the council meetings. That's what she told me earlier today.
Listen, I wouldn't mind.
A Fall River resident, Linda.
Yes.
I'm happy.
He's right in my office.
All right, there being no questions, thank you very much for coming.
I love
down.
these shoes, by the way.
Seth, you remember when we were that nice to you?
Yeah.
That one day?
Yes, okay. As long as we're identifying that one day, I do remember that. I think about it a lot.
Let's remind everyone, Seth used to live 5 minutes away. He moved to another state, so might be ready for that. Just joking, just kidding. He doesn't live in another state. We're going to have Collector's Office come down next. If you could, just state your name again, please. I know someone might have just tuned in at home and they want to know who we're talking to.
Ian Shackney, Treasurer Collector.
Thank you, Ian. Counselor in seat 7.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hi, Ian again.
Hi.
2 questions. First is on page 126 on the advertising line item.
Yes.
And it's more of a curiosity question.
Yes.
So I understand that the cost can be recoverable.
Yes.
And I noticed that if the Herald News has told us that it's gonna cost more. So is it a legal requirement that it goes in the newspaper?
Yes. Yep, we have to, before we can put a property in tax title,
Yep.
we have to advertise that in a local newspaper.
So in
yes.
2024, we're still relying on the paper?
Yes, that's a state law,
Wow,
yes.
that's great.
Quick, excuse me for 1 second, Counselor. Do
Yep.
you do the online version or both the paper and the online
Yeah, well,
advertising?
we put it online too, but it's mostly just the paper, and
Okay.
that has a cost, and the cost of the ad is divided by it's the cost of the ad divided by the number of parcels in the ad, and that's how we take that number and add it to the tax title balance. So when we get paid off on tax title, we're also getting paid off for the ad.
Gotcha. So to clarify, because I don't know the state law, so at minimum, it has to be in the newspaper, but you guys put it online too?
Yeah, just,
Good job. Well, I know that, but I'm just curious. Okay, but it's
We also-
recoverable. I'm
We
sorry?
we also post the, a copy goes to the library.
yep, it's in the library, it's downstairs, it's right in the hallway, we put it everywhere we can, clerk's office.
City's
our
website?
office, city's website.
Oh, awesome, cool. The second question I had was how many takings took place last year?
I believe it was about 142 or 140 and change,
140-ish.
yeah.
All right.
Hey, Counselor?
Sir.
Would you allow Mr. Shackney to describe what a taking is, just for anybody who's listening?
Please indulge.
Because it sounds like a huge thing. and
Yes,
it-
no,
there's a
that's a
very-
Great idea.
Yes, please,
Thank you.
if you could indulge
Yeah,
us.
so it's not like we're taking your property right away. It's an old term going back a very, very long time. But it's basically just perfecting the lien that is pre-existing on the property. We record an instrument of taking at the Registry of Deeds. And now that when anyone does a title search and they're about to sell the property, they realize that we're owed money and we get paid off at a closing or, hopefully before that as well. But we try to keep that number, because it is, we try to keep that number as low as possible. Obviously, we want everyone to pay on time or before they go into tax title. So tax taking is just the process of entering tax title, putting a lien on the property to protect the amount of money that's owed to us.
And it must be a funny thing to budget, because I can imagine it doesn't happen within a budget season, per se.
Well, yeah, we'll be paying these amounts in FY '25 for the delinquent FY '24 taxpayers.
Yeah, okay, so it plays catch up a little bit.
So we work all summer at getting that number as low as possible. We make phone calls. We try to reach out to everyone we can. If we get mail returned, we try to find a new address, send it back out. We send letters. We send a notice before they're advertised that, hey, this is about to happen. Then we advertise. And then after they go into tax title, we send another letter. We're sending demands. We're trying to communicate as best we can to make sure that this doesn't happen to people here.
And are all those costs part of that process recoverable?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the office time that we're using, that's pretty
Not
much
that.
just us. But anything that we add, any type of legal fee that we add on, that we get back once it's paid.
Like, for example, you mentioned when mail is returned and trying to find a new address, you have to do a search for that, and that's usually a legal thing they have to do.
Well, it's sort of a best practice that we found. We send out a demand notice, but because of the timing issue, it's a new owner. But we mailed it to the old owner. Then the mail comes back, we go onto the assessor's database, we notice, hey, this actually has been sold. So we take the same letter, just stick in a new envelope, put the new owner's name on it, and send it back out. That way, they're not caught off guard when, they're in the paper, or if there's extra fees added, or we do our best to make sure that it doesn't get that far.
I have to say that the collector's office, this is something that I know a lot of collector's offices don't do around the state, but they actually call as many people as they can, because some people, some things happened and they were not, they forgot about it or whatever, but we've actually been able to help bring people in and, get them to pay. And a lot of that, they spend a lot of time on making phone calls to taxpayers that are delinquent.
Awesome. That's all I have. Thank you, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor in seat 5, Counselor in seat 8, Counselor Sampson.
I just have a quick question, Ian. The summer hours, there was a reduction, and I just don't understand why 47% for what's?
Oh, we had a person who did get summer hours is no longer there, so.
So they're no longer, okay. Is that like a thing of the past, summer hours?
So
Yeah.
that was an old, I don't know what year the contract was, but there was some employees that were offered summer hours, so they could either work the hours and get the extra money, or they could take how many hours off during the summer. And most of those employees are either moved on to other positions that are no longer union positions, or they're not working for the city anymore.
Nice.
So that's slowly dwindling out.
Nice, well, that's a good reduction. And I just want to, my comment is, you're new to the position, you're doing a great job, and we're fortunate to have you. So thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
You, Counselor?
I yield, sorry, Council
That's okay.
President.
Just to make sure. Counselor in seat 2, Counselor Dion?
Good evening. The process you were just explaining, do you have a schedule as to what, do you have specific months that you advertise, or a schedule for your advertising?
It's generally, so the fiscal year final payment is due May 1st. After that, we give it a couple weeks just for catch-up and mail and everything, and then we send out a demand notice. It lets people know that they still owe the money. So that's mid-May. In people that are already in tax title, we do what's called a subsequent certification. So they owe for a year from, like, say they owe 2023, and they also haven't paid 2024. So we lump that into the tax title balance mid-June, after the demand is past due itself. Then early July, we're going to send a letter saying, hey, you still owe it, we're about to advertise you. And then in August, we're going to put the ad out. And then in September, we're going to do the tax taking.
And how many payment plans do you have at this time?
Right now, we probably are in the 20s active.
Is that average, do you think, or
I think-
has it improved over the years, or are you
We've gotten a
finding
lot
it-
of decent payoffs lately, and you know, as, we get a lot in the beginning of the new fiscal year after that taking has occurred, and we send out the notice. And then by this time, they're either, you know, they've either completed them or they've defaulted them. And then we're gonna do a new taking and we start the whole process over. So they go for, they're usually about a year long. That's usually what they are. So some come off, some come on, in the 20s usually.
All right, thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor in C5, Counselor Vice President Pereira.
Yeah, through the president to the city clerk. We had to do some advertising too for different things in the clerk's office. But wasn't there talk about the legislature changing that?
Yes.
Has anything happened?
Probably not in this case.
But
because
for
they're
you.
different, but for us, yes.
Because honestly, people aren't getting the newspaper like they used to. And if you're advertising with the newspaper, the whole newspaper goes online anyway, so it should be
And we've
the
moved
same
to
fee.
also host it on our website as well.
But that might be something to talk to the state delegation about.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been discussed many
And
times.
any
and
news on it?
Not as of today, no.
No. But they are looking at that?
Yeah, people have definitely are aware that the newspaper is not as
Yeah.
reviewed as it
Maybe-
used to be.
May I clarify? Maybe, may I clarify? If I'm not, I might be correct, I hope, but the court issues a citation that has a directive of what has to be, unless I'm missing your point, I'm sorry.
Well, just Mass General Law
There's a-
says that in
there's
order
a
to put someone in
citation.
tax
You're gonna
title, it's one
follow-
of the steps that we have to take. If we get to the point
gonna
where
follow the court's
we're gonna
order
do a
in terms of-
foreclosure.
Right.
And because, you know, so much time has passed and they owe so much money and nothing's being done and we have to do a foreclosure, if we didn't check that box, then we can't do it. We gotta take it out of tax title, start all over, lose all
It's
the
almost
interest.
like in probate court, you've got to put
Yes.
something in the paper to
legal
do whatever,
advertisements, you
all those legal advertisements. But I'm saying, you know, the world changes, things change, and for it to go up about, you know, $5,000, and I don't think you're getting the readership that you would. I've just wondered if the state was looking at that, and, you know, you go to these treasurer collective meetings, are other communities?
Yeah, I think, and especially in some other towns, we have we're lucky enough to have our own newspaper. Some
Right.
towns don't, and they have to put in a newspaper that could be, you know, a half hour away from the location
right.
that they're in. But we just have to follow Mass General Law and check the box.
All right, I think that's, I mean, I don't have any problem, your department seems to be running well. Everybody's pretty calm in your department, which is a good thing.
You need to be,
But
yeah.
did you lose someone to the clerk?
We've had some turnover, but we're.
Right, but is there a vacancy now in your department because someone moved over to the clerk's side?
Not for that purpose, no.
There's none.
No, we filled that vacancy, but we actually have somebody that's gonna be moving from collectors over to treasurers. So we will have a vacancy again in collectors.
Okay. So the names that are in here are the people that you have? No.
No,
One
that's-
of them
that's
is
just
now
changed.
working?
Yes. One of
Okay,
them
but
is now
you
working
put
for city
somebody
clerk.
else in?
Yes,
And they would be at the same pay? Because I don't see longevity on, so they would be at the same pay?
yeah,
Okay. Just when, and you've already filled that position?
we did.
We filled that one and
Unfortunately, that's a hard position to, people don't always stay long-term, you know, they come in and we
Right.
teach them and then they move on to another department where they're making more money.
Story of our lives in
Yeah.
Fall River, they move on to make more money in the same building in a different department. I mean, I look here and I see the assistant collector, and assistant collectors all over make a lot more than that, so should consider when people are good employees to look at that. With that, I yield. Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Counselor.
President.
Counselor in C2, Counselor Dion.
Yeah, what's the difference in the interest rate between when somebody's paying their taxes late versus once they're in the,
So, before you're, so the day you're late when it's a regular real estate tax bill, it's 14%. When we put it into tax title, it goes to 16%.
2% difference? And I have another question. We've been, geez, I'm not even sure how many years now, a few years now, I believe, that Bay Coast Bank has been accepting payments on behalf of the city. Have you had a reduction in staffing because of that? Has that had,
No,
what
it
kind of
just-
impact
so
has
there-
that had on us?
So the impact is that it's, the line at the window has been reduced, but it's not like they're entering those payments into Munis. We get a report every day of all the payments that they took. We have to manually enter them. Also, it's freed up the staff in certain periods of time to do those other things like I was talking about, like make those phone calls. We turn into a phone bank. It's extremely effective, and we reach out as much as we can. So it's not so much, and the phones don't stop, the emails don't stop. But what Bay Coast has definitely helped with is the actual human being in front of us, which there's still plenty coming in, but that's been the effect of that.
Okay, thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. There be no further questions?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Shack.
Move on
Thank
to-
you.
Thank you.
I guess that was covered treasure as well, correct?
City's lucky to have you.
So we'll go on to debt services. Council seat 7.
Can you just give us a rundown of what has turned over from short-term to long-term?
So as of, right now, we still have, about 13.7 in short-term bans outstanding that we will be then looking to long-term over the next, couple years. We won't know that exact number because some of that's the last piece of the Durfee debt that, and they're in the middle of doing that closeout final audit of that. And then once we know what our actual last reimbursement from MSBA is, and that's when we know what we have left to long-term of that piece. And, as you can see, like, we've stayed pretty level this year, going into '25. But again, that's without, us long-terming the short-term piece, because then that will then change this amortization schedule again. And again, we do have a lot of outstanding debt, but we're trying to, not do borrowings right now and like get us to be like stable where we can start getting some cash flow room there. Because ideally, we wouldn't want, there used to be an old policy of trying to not have more than 10 million.
Yeah, that was actually my next question.
Yeah.
What's kind of the goal you're looking to have?
Well, I mean, that would be a nice goal, is to be under 10
Other
million.
than zero, but,
Yeah.
you know.
I mean, when I, when Ian became the treasurer and I was coming in, I think there was about 42 million that we had to long-term over the last 2 years, so.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other debt service questions? Ian, thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you.
Attorney Akins, Bridget, thank you all for coming down.
Thank you,
I'll
Ian.
entertain a motion
Motion to adjourn?
to adjourn.
Mr. President?
Counselor seat 3, Counselor Hart.
Yeah, I just wanted to like told you already, but tomorrow I'm not gonna be able to attend my son's graduation from Diamond, so.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You are going to attend your son's graduation, you're not going to attend the council
Absolutely,
meeting.
yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure, you're still not going to attend my son's graduation.
Thank you.
Some things are more important.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn has been made. Is there a second? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? City Council Committee on Finance is now adjourned. See everybody tomorrow night.
Hey.